This is Enigma, the most powerful item in Diablo 2. It's used by nearly every class, and it's essential for almost any endgame build, but the runes to make it? They're insanely rare. Some players farm the far reaches of this game for years and still never find them. So knowing that, why even leave town at all? That's right, I set out to trade my way up to Enigma using only gear that I could find from vendors. This was the most ambitious challenge I had ever embarked on in this game, and while I wasn't sure if I could do it, I was blown away by the value that some of these vendor items brought in. But let's start from the beginning. I had just finished the biggest ladder race of my life, level 99, rank 1 Amazon. But instead of celebrating, I decided to throw it all away. And by that I mean I sold all of my gear while it was still overpriced.
Thanks.
But a couple of weeks later, I kinda wanted to play again. Sure, I could have just bought all my gear back with the forum gold that I made, but where's the fun in that? At this very special moment in time, I had absolutely nothing. No items, no stash, nothing but the gold I had acquired on my way to the tippy top. And that got me thinking, was it possible to start from almost nothing and get the most powerful item in D2? To go further, could I do it without leaving the confines of town? Unless you count resetting vendors like this. But the point is, vendors can sell some decent items sometimes, which could be enough to get us started in the trading world. But of course, we would need to set a few ground rules first. First and foremost, no donations. This also means no joining free gear games. Rule number 2 is no killing monsters. We can't just wait for Diablo clone to spawn, cheese him with some cheap gear, and sell that beautiful Annihilus charm. We must grind.
Oh my no way!
This rule also means that we can't keep killing council members to get more gold. Trading is of course allowed, but letting people purposely overpay is not. I also tried to reduce trading on stream as much as possible. Some of our amazing friends in chat would be ready, waiting, and happy to make fair market trades at any time. But sometimes even fair trades can take days to complete, if you even get those trades at all. And that struggle is part of the journey. So while I didn't outright ban trading while streaming altogether, it was very, very limited and regulated. And finally, every trade must be for in-game items. We can use sites like Tradery or JSP to find trades, but we can't exchange things like forum gold or other currencies for items. No, this was gonna be an organic trading journey that could involve procuring trades from all around the world. But with this ambitious goal, we still had to start somewhere, which is also true if you want to be something more than an AI jockey in the coding world. You gotta start somewhere, and boot.dev might just be the place to do that. Boot.dev gamifies our journey of learning code. That way, it never gets boring. You earn XP, achievements, complete quests, and even fight bosses while learning Python, JavaScript, SQL, and more. The median salary for backend developers is well over $100,000 a year. If the thought of discovering a new and valuable industry skill has ever crossed your mind, you're gonna want to see this. All the content on this site for literally every single course is free to read and watch. A paid membership unlocks interactive features like hands-on coding, AI assistance, progress tracking, and game mechanics. In order to stay fresh with my skills, I am also an active member on this site, so come join me. Check out boot.dev with my link below for a 25% discount on your entire first year on the annual plan. The first day was interesting. I streamed the start of this challenge and basically spent a good portion of it shopping. In order to not feel like a complete noob, I bought some gear from vendors just to give my Amazon a good look. In retrospect, this probably made me look even more like a noob for wasting gold. You know, our only finite resource in this challenge. But the early days of this challenge would prove to be a big learning experience. While I do trade a lot, I typically trade items of super high value. We're talking charms worth 15 Enigmas in and of themselves on the reg. But in all seriousness, I actually had no idea what trading was like at this level. So while I thought buying something like this would bring value,
Level 6 teleport. This is really good.
I was completely wrong, and this tele staff was a complete waste of gold. For the rest of the afternoon, I just kinda guessed as to what items people might pay for. More specifically, which items were easy to find that people might pay for. So I aimed for things like these. This is a bow stick. Bow barbs, or barbs that solely exist to cast battle orders, are popular among players that climb the ladder and load multiple D2 clients. In light of this, bow sticks, or items that have +3 to war cries on them, might fetch a small profit, I thought. In fact, one of my best early finds in my book were these matching bow sticks. If you find one that takes up 3 inventory boxes and you get 2 sockets at Larzuk, it's actually worth a little more than you'd think. They're used on barbs for a pre-buff setup in PvP. You put foul runes in the sockets so that you can still wear your gear after swapping to them. My matching pair both got 2 sockets, so I posted them for a Sir rune each. They didn't sell during this challenge, but that's okay. I was just gonna use them on my non-ladder barbs anyway. Additionally, my character used a lower res wand early on, so I bought one of those as well. I didn't think too much of it and posted it on Tradery for a fair market price. Little did I know, that purchase might have been the most important one of the entire challenge. But it was easy to look past that find when towards the end of the day, Anya sold us this.
Oh, yes, baby, here it is.
I might have been a little too excited for this one. This is an armor that's useful in low-level dueling. There's just one little problem. These things are insanely hard to trade. Most dueling happens on non-ladder, and it isn't like this thing was 100% perfect. So while it was technically worth an Ulm rune, it was gonna be really hard to sell. But let's back up. What are we even selling things for in this game? The short answer is runes. There are 30 some odd runes in Diablo 2, from L to Zod, and they've become a bit of a currency item. Usually, the higher up the rune ladder you go, the more valuable the runes are. The value of these runes pretty much caps out at around the jaw and the bear rune, then goes down from there. Conveniently, the 2 highest runes we need to make this armor. But there are various rune words that are good at nearly all stages of the game, which is why runes have sort of become the currency. You just need to get the right runes, put them in the right base, in the right order. Unlike my friend Joby, who once tried to make a grief inside of an armor. Yeah, he's a noob. But any rune might have been a bit out of our budget after day 1. We were gonna have to settle for some lesser bartering. Remember that lower res wand? Well, after day 1, it was clear that with my buying habits, we were gonna run out of gold eventually, and probably not have much to show for it. So Leroy in chat offered to buy my lower res wand for a couple million in-game gold. I thought this was just kind of a pity purchase to keep the challenge going, but it turns out I might have sold this too cheap. I forgot to take the auction down on Tradery, and later that day, someone from Asia offered a perfect gem to buy my lower res wand. You know, the wand I no longer had. It was gonna suck to lose out on getting perfect gems, because they actually might trade for something. But I guess I was just gonna have to cancel the trade. Nah, fuck that. I went on an emergency Drognan shopping spree to find another lower res wand. Luckily, I was able to find one within minutes, and this guy didn't seem to be too partial about it being exactly as listed.
Thank you. Thanks.
We had done it. We traded for our first item that we couldn't otherwise obtain from the confines of town. While I thought this was a minor milestone, it was actually a pretty big one. These things are worth way more than any other gem. We're basically still talking pennies here, but if a P topaz is the penny, then the amethyst is the nickel. I had some real buying power now. Kinda. People were trying to trade items like Laying of Hands for a P amethyst, or the Cat's Eye for 2 P amethysts. It just seemed like people were trying to pitch their subpar finds for this specific gem. This was kind of its own little staple. Again, it's not really worth a lot, but it seemed to be the common language of my fellow Po folk. Learning this, I got to work. I started looking for items from vendors that would certainly trade for a perfect amethyst. And along the way, I came across some other really cool items, like this LLD shield. While it might be worth something, much like the armor that we found, it will probably be hard to sell. But speaking of armors, I also ran into this. According to Tradery, this could also be worth something big. But all of this stuff was going to be hard to move, so I needed to keep an eye out for something that might be a little easier of a sell. Eventually, I came across these. They're not perfect, but they're certainly useful. The god find for gloves would be these. While they look pretty similar, the extra +1 to skills here makes them worth a high rune. But I still did sell the lesser ones for a few more P amethysts. Then I began to wonder if these could be flipped. People were offering some great items for this gem, and I was sure that if I was patient, I could buy low and sell high. So that's what I tried to do. And if you're patient enough, good deals do come along. I traded that perfect amethyst for an Annihilus charm. Although I guess it technically was a fair trade, I still cannot conceptualize how this thing isn't worth way more than a P amethyst. I do understand that a lot of these things flood the market when declone spawns, but there are players who either miss these clone walks or just can't kill them in the first place. And I was willing to bet that if I was patient enough, I could sell this to one of those players. So I swapped back over to America and tried to do just that. Then, within minutes, this happened. We traded the Annihilus for an Ist rune, which is worth about 10 P amethysts. This was incredible value, which inspired me to try and do it again. But how consistently could we pull this off? Were there more opportunities like this out there? Yep, there definitely was. I bought every Annie charm I could for a P amethyst from the Asia server. Apparently, Declone had just walked over there, and people were trying to get rid of their lowly rolled Annie charms for cheap. And just like that, we had started a D2 business. If I was patient enough, I could sell these Annies for an Ist rune on America, or at least way more than I bought them for. And the best part was, I could just make public games with my offer and shop vendors while I waited for people to join. And you never know what kind of player will join. Not only did this guy buy an Annie from me for an Ist, but he also asked what else I had for trade. And while I thought he would just laugh at the vendor-purchased trash that I had, he actually took an interest in some of it. For the Jeweler's Armor of the Titan, he was offering some crazy things. After some back and forth, he ended up trading me an Ohm rune for it. This was obviously huge progress for my challenge, but the best part of this whole interaction was how wholesome it was. You don't see that much anymore. It left me with a good feeling as I continued my trading adventure. Business was thriving, and it felt like nothing could stop us now. That was until this happened. Declone eventually spawned on the America server later that evening, and now there were going to be way more Annihilus charms for sale in public games. For now, our little Annie racket was over. It was back to the grind. I was desperate because I still had a long ways to go despite the Annie profits. Even the stupidest items started looking good to me at this point. Like these inconspicuous Java gloves with perfect MF. I would have never given these things a second look, but because they were perfect, I decided to post them on Tradery. And they actually sold.
Yes?
Like for a surprising amount of mid-runes. Kinda wild. But the true hustle began after I found these. Although these aren't perfect, I might have had a buyer in mind already. And it all started at the beginning of this latter season. This is Sir What's-His-Name. At the beginning of the latter season, we both made Amazons. I went Javs, he went Bow. We both had a goal of grinding to 99 on those respective builds, and he still had a ways to go. So I was willing to bet that he might have an interest in these particular gloves. I dropped in on his very next stream, but before I could even work up the nerve to ask anything for these, I had a bit of a change of heart.
Let's go on Javazon. We're going Boazon. Coooley will find us some stuff for Bo.
You see, we had said that we would help each other out with gear as much as possible this season, and literally on day one, he dropped a pair of Titans for my Zon. There was no way I was gonna ask anything for these, so I offered to give them to him for free. However, Sir What's-His-Name is one of the most generous D2 streamers I've ever met, and he still insisted on paying me for them. Super nice guy. This might have been a slight overpay, but compared to the price of an Enigma, it's really piss in the ocean, so we accepted it. I was able to make some other trades with people in his game, but I kind of felt like a used car salesman and eventually saw my way out.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks to Tradery, I was able to score that deal a couple days later. While it might seem like some big value getting a trash druid torch for a P amethyst, the torch business wasn't as profitable as I thought it would be. After hours of trying to trade this thing, I finally found a game where someone was offering an rune for it. Unfortunately, I wasn't the only person with one for sale. This game was turning into a sausage fest fast, but I wasn't waiting any longer to trade this thing, so I pulled a dirty trick. I offered mine for half the price. This quickly got me the deal and left all the other traders holding the bag. But this made me think that if I wanted to make a real profit in the torch trading world, I would have to take some real risks. After sniping what I saw as the best priced high-value torch, I thought we would see some real gains. I managed to score a very highly rolled paladin torch for the rune that we acquired earlier. This made me a little nervous though, because that was our highest rune by far and represented a lot of the value that we built up in this challenge. But was the risk worth the reward? No, it wasn't. I sat on this thing for well over a day while trying to sell it for what it was technically worth, which was almost twice the value we bought it for. And while I finally did see one offer come in, it happened while I was sleeping and the guy canceled before I woke up. So after dropping the price lower and lower throughout the day, I ended up just selling it for an rune, breaking even. But this torch trading saga didn't turn out to be a complete waste of time. I came across a public game where one player apparently had more un-ID'd torches than he knew what to do with. He was asking an rune each, but we weren't about to go down that road again. Instead, I offered some of the items that we had shopped because the value was technically there. He ended up accepting the LLD armor that we found on day 1 for one of his torches. And no, I was not gonna ID this thing and hope for a sorceress or paladin torch. With my luck, we'd just end up right back where we started. Instead, I quickly pitched it for a Vex rune and closed the book on this whole torch trading thing. It was time to go back to our roots. I found myself back on the streets of Loot Goblin, shopping with Elzix for a change of pace. And to my surprise, he gave us one of our best vendor-shopped items so far. These gloves are used on a Mosaic assassin and boost her damage quite a bit. Not that a Mosaic Sin needs any more damage, but the point is they do trade for a lot. So we put them up for sale and you're not gonna believe who bought them. This f***ing guy. I don't know what Sir What's-His-Name wanted with these gloves, but at this point he had helped us more this season than we could ever pay him back for. He even threw in a few un-ID'd unique rings for fun. They weren't anything special, but we ended up wearing 2 of them and selling the 2 dwarf stars for a perfect amethyst each. I was starting to feel like a baller. We had amassed quite a bit of wealth now, and it was time to make some big moves. But first, some upgrades. I was doing a lot of running around on my Amazon, from portals in Act 5 to the streets of Loot Goblin, even in and out of Act 1 town. So I decided to invest in some faster run walk gear. Not sure how much actual value we would get from this investment, but it felt good to put some decent gear on our Amazon again. Made it feel like we had really accomplished something. We even swapped out the shield for a lighter one, making us run slightly faster as well. After putting some hard-earned clothes on our character, we made a pretty big trade. We got the Bear rune. Whereas Bear was slightly more expensive at that point than Jaw, that meant we were over halfway there. And now, I was really motivated to continue the grind. But aside from running quite a bit faster now, we were practically starting over, because we had traded every single rune we had for this. But starting over wasn't all that bad. We already knew what worked. So, I traded away what was left of the Annihilus charms from earlier for a couple of P amethysts each. These ones were kinda trash, which is probably why they didn't sell for more. We were gonna try to do the same thing again, but this time we had a different plan. We would shop for good Annihilus charms that would definitely sell for an Isterun each. With some patience, I was betting we would see some deals. It had been a few days since D-Clone walked on America, so it was time to give our business another shot.
One man on the planet that'll drive off of the Grand Canyon, hop out of a Grand Am and land in a handstanding.
Our grand plan was to trade the PAMs for an Annie in hand and make out like a damn bandit. That's basically what we did, though. While waiting in public games for these to sell, we sort of started up another side hustle. Remember those bow sticks we bought earlier? They now started selling as well. So we bought more, and they just kept selling. We could get rid of them for anywhere between a pull rune and a mal rune for a set. We had some great synergy going on at this point. But it wasn't until Anya sold us these that I knew the end was in sight. These gloves were one of the holy grail finds that I had hoped for. They're definitely worth a jaw rune, but now we had to find a buyer. I posted them on Tradery and made a post on JSP. There, I offered to trade the gloves or all the runes we had mustered up so far for a jaw rune. They were technically worth it, so it was worth a shot. While I waited to see if that trade would go through, I started shopping for a nice base that we would eventually need to make Enigma. Even at level 99, you can shop these from Farah in Act 2 normal, and while any non-magic 3-socket armor base would do, with all the work we'd put into this challenge so far, we weren't settling for anything but a perfect one. One with 3 sockets and 15% enhanced defense. And finally, after checking Farah's wares literally 1,000 times, I gave up and overpaid for one. I ended up trading this armor that I shopped from Anya for it. Throughout this entire challenge, we'd actually hoped to get a 4-socket armor with 100 life on it, because those are actually worth quite a bit. But the only thing we got from D2 vendors in that regard was trolled. Dude, what the f***, man? We also needed an Ith rune. That piece of the puzzle isn't nearly as expensive as the other two, but I did significantly overpay for it with this armor that we shopped. And if you're wondering why I was overpaying for things already, it's because someone accepted my trade for a jaw rune. Finally, we had all the pieces, and it was time to make the most magnificent item in the game. Just kidding, who do you think I am, Joby? This can roll up to 775 added defense, and this was actually a pretty decent roll. And now, there was only one thing left to do. I named this armor with the Anya quests and gave it to Sir What's-His-Name. I don't think he needed it at this point, but he certainly deserved it. I'm not gonna lie, this challenge was easier than I thought it would be. Some people may say we traded too much or got too generous of a deal sometimes. And to those people I say, you're right. We actually tried too hard with this challenge. We didn't need to flip Annies or be used car salesmen in forums or pub games. We just needed to wait. Those gloves I found at the end, they ended up selling for a Sir rune. And remember those 2-socket bow sticks from the beginning? Those also ended up selling for a Sir rune each. This random armor I came across also sold for way more than I thought it would. In fact, with all of these items we'd stocked up on from shopping at vendors, there were a ton of trades that happened naturally sometime after the challenge was done. We were able to make another Enigma with those trades on top of stacking up all these other runes. And that's not even the craziest shopping event that happened after the challenge was done. But I'll save that story for this video. Make sure you're subscribed if you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching.